All right. So I'm going to start today's discussion with like pulse of the market, uh, September 15th right now. And when you think about this, and this will be new for everybody in this group, right? Because you know, overwhelming majority are going to operate through your first real estate seasonality type of effects that come. So I think it's a great opportunity, like right now, to just give you a snapshot on how this all works seasonality wise. Last week was really the first full week after school, first full week after summer ended. Like didn't have Labor Day weekend, didn't have that week back to school. Didn't there was a lot of funkiness to the season this year in the sense of the um just economic type stuff that's going on combined with you know I'm going to enjoy the summer and kind of let the pedal off the metal was the sentiment that I think a lot of agents were getting from a lot of their consumers. Now, side note, like okay, how many agents were just attributing to that dynamic playing out by letting the pedal off the metal themselves, right? But that's worth noting. So what we typically get this time of year would be a kind of organic seasonal approach from now until um, and not approach, but a push of good flow, so to speak, happening from now until Thanksgiving, right? So we've got roughly 2 months of this natural seasonal market that'll play out where it's going to feel busier than it has the last few weeks leading up to last week. And it's going to feel certainly a lot busier than just the holiday period of Thanksgiving till New Year's. Um, as you may suspect, the holidays are the holidays to where everybody, in the world seems like they've got other priorities, rightfully so. And it's not to say that you can't sell any homes during that period, but there, I'd be lying to you if I told you like there's not a significant effect to the marketplace in real estate during that time. You know, so yes, and I can tell you, I've personally negotiated deals on Christmas Eve before, right? So like it's there, and ultimately the equation of how well you're performing in order to generate the opportunities to help people, you know, with their real estate goals, and if their goals happen to be, doesn't matter what time of the year it is, this can be a really good opportune time because we are on the downslope that has started last month, really for the next 6 months.
Well, only good for buyers.
No, because I mean, you could look at this a couple different ways. So the question was, is it only good for buyers compared to sellers? And one hand, be aware that, when you see the chart of pricing year in and year out, pricing does increase, you know, um, in the spring and summer seasons compared to the fall and winter. Okay? Now, does that mean that a house any one seller is going to sell for that much less or that much more, depending on the time of year? Not necessarily. If inventory increases, and so really what matters is just the overall like the micro effect that's happening in those moments. Because if we're in a market where it's seasonal and inventory is higher than what it was previous, and demand is lower, then pricing's going to go down, right? If we're in a period right now where here's where I would predict, just to not give you anything to have to analyze, interest rates have just dropped in the last couple of weeks. Unless supply substantially increases, there's should be, in theory, with this seasonal push and a drop of interest rates, there should be a fair amount of demand that's out there in the marketplace, which therefore, creates a good situation for sellers. And ultimately, make sure you caution on sellers that are focusing on the peak of the market as the best time to list because well, I mean, there could be a reason to do that, right? It just really comes down to like, why is there a reason to wait? Because if it's strictly because of money, well, you have that much more in tax payments and mortgage payments, et cetera, that you're paying during that time. And then also like, what's the next move and what's the alternative cost, to reaching that, if you do, because it may be, just as if in theory it's, if your home sells for less right now, well, you're also buying a home for less than what you would in the spring market. And another thing to think about is just yeah, the seasonal peak that comes, but you're also then competing with that much more supply as a seller. To where it's just kind of tough to time the market overall as a general rule of thumb. But um, again, all this rambling to say, like we've entered this stretch for the next couple months where we're outside of the lull of the end of summer and Labor Day and kids going back to school. And we're before the big seasonal lull and slowdown of the holidays. So, this is another opportunity to make hay while the sun shines. Where I really want you to be in the mindset as a business owner is to kind of play this game where you have let's have 5 quarters worth of time to reach our goals in 2026. And if you start playing that game right now, mentally and from your action standpoint, you have just that because you have all of 26 and the 4 quarters and 12 months that come with it. And then another 3.5 months if you start right now working on reaching those goals. You also have, I say, 8 weeks left in 2025 to reach your goals because anything that goes under contract, 8 weeks brings us till the end of the first week of November, and anything that goes under contract after that probably is closing in 2026, all things considered. We also have 100 and some odd days left till the end of the year itself, calendar days wise. So like that's, you know, a little less than a third of the year. So when the knee jerk reaction is like, all right, pack it in, fall's here, pumpkin spice, apple picking, all that stuff, like fight and really fight with purpose to go out there and create a plan that you can take action on in order to reach reach the goals. So some ways to do that. One, um, just I guess some side notes, some housekeeping things. Number one, everybody should be taking the first step of bowl next Tuesday, the 23rd in Batavia, 9 till 2, I believe it runs, 2 or 3. It's free, even if you don't decide to go for the full fold and all, what is it, 7, I believe? No, 6 total, I think, courses. This is free. It will be valuable. It will be worth your time. So definitely be there next week. A week apart. Yep, every Tuesday. Um, it's an investment in yourself for further accountability, further training, further coaching, further just how to's for this business. And I've done it a number of times and I'm doing it again. Another side note, Taylor Presley Wednesday is doing a live like mock demo, role play situation for her buyer's consultation that she performs for her business. I think it's can't miss if you're able to be there logistically, you should definitely be there. So it'll be really valuable perspective from another top producer in the industry in our company. And even if you work to get yourself to a place where you have your routine, your presentation, what you're doing, additional perspective will help because I guarantee you'll walk away with a lot of nuggets from that. There is a couple ways to figure out how to live this plan and reach your goals. Here's my lesson, couple themes for today. One would be I want you to really, I've got three questions that I want you to analyze and, determine, where you're at right now as business owner overall. For those that have just started and haven't attacked this yet, it's okay because this is context as to really, what you need to be thinking of building. And if you've been here and you've done it a few months or just, at any point, it's always good to have the perspective to be able to potentially add to or, reset what you're doing if you're not seeing the result. So I really want you to grade yourself on each of these three questions that I'm about to ask and have that, dictate what opportunities it presents for you to focus on from here. First question is, how complete is your database? And we can look at that from a few different levels. One would be, do you have the people that need to be in there? Are they in there? Or is there just some list or some source or some stone that needs to be unturned in order to get them in your database or get yourself, thinking of the people that should be in there that need to be identified and start adding them. Another aspect of looking at how complete is your database would be the people that you do have in there. Do you have complete information for them? So if you just have a list of names but no way to contact them, the order's on pointless, right? If you have a list of names and phone numbers but no email addresses, well, all you can do is call or text them, and you can't have any email marketing go out to them. Vice versa, if you have an email but no home address or phone number, well, you can't contact them via phone, and you can't mail them and or know where they live to be able to try to offer that sort of related value to them. Focus on those two first, but from there, another way of thinking about that question of how complete is your database would be, is it organized properly? Say, there's different segments of people that you want to group together, like investors, for example, or people that share common interests. Like, say, if you're a big golfer or pickleball player or dog lover, whatever, and you have other people that enjoy the same hobbies, you could organize your database to have a list of all the dog lovers, and this way there's 30 of them. You can pull them up easily if you want to do something dog related marketing wise or an event or whatever it is. So first grade to give yourself is, how complete is your database? And if it's lacking, like, yeah, you know what to focus on. You know what to push for in the next 3 months and forever in your business. This whole concept of what I'm laying out here applies at any point. I'm just telling you, you got a unique opportunity to create a push right now for yourself to really have 2026 last for 5 quarters, 15 months instead of 12 and 4 quarters. Excuse me. Second question would be, how well does your system feed you the contacts that you need to make? How well does your system tell you what to do and when with each person in this database? Because the mission becomes to contact your database systematically and consistently. So how well are you following a system to where it becomes easy to just pull up to your desk, open a computer, open your phone, whatever it is, and when you're ready to start making calls and contacts and shooting messages out for lead generation and lead follow-up, pipeline follow-up, and happy birthday and a home anniversary, or hey, their wedding anniversary, whatever it is. How well is your system set up to tell you who to contact and when? Take it a step further would be to tell you who to contact and when and why. Meaning, like, you're able to just find a way to have that task in command, be summarized so that you don't have to go digging as to where you left off with them or why you need to contact them or what would be a good thing to talk about with them based on the relationship. But more so, it's, bells or whistles are going off. and you're able to, you're walking and talking. You're just following the system, and it tells you who to contact, and boom, let's make the contacts. This is a lifestyle play here in terms of, the lifestyle that you can create for yourself in a number of different ways. Because one, like your business will be more successful as a result, and therefore, what lifestyle are you actually creating for yourself in terms of living? But just as a business owner and the lifestyle that you need to have with the actions and the methods in order to how to go about this business, like it should get to a point where it's just like, all right, my system is either telling me that I'm behind because there's days or weeks or whatever worth of people that you haven't contacted yet, and it's telling you these are past due. They're in red, they're slapping you in the face, telling you kind of get it together, right? The list is building. That should be the lifestyle that you're living by using this system. Or just the lifestyle in the better sense of it would be, all right, I'm ready to get to work, put on the hard hat, grab my lunch pail, I'm ready to get after it. And what do I need to do to get after it? Pull up my system and boom, there's 13 contacts I need to get through. All right, and I did it. And you know what? I don't really feel like making any more today, but I did my job. That's okay. And then tomorrow, continuing that lifestyle. Today, there's 9 contacts I need to make. Great. I'm on a roll. Did it. Done. Wednesday, pull up the system. 19 contacts you need to make that day. Well, only got 14 done. Thursday, pull up the system. Okay, we got the 5 left over from Wednesday to make it 19 and 12 more to make today to stay on track. And you're just playing this. Yeah, you can gamify it, right, for yourself. That's an example of like what I refer to as the lifestyle as a business owner. To make this easy and something to follow that is just teed up, telling you who to contact and when at all times. If you're using command, the system would be tasks. The way I think of this is just have one task for each individual contact in your database. And then when you go to make that contact, because it's telling you you're up to make it, set the next contact at all times. And again, another example of lifestyle of how to go about this business. So if you have 400 people in your database in command, you should have 400 tasks with the way that I would do it. If you're using a smart plan, and there's all sorts of tasks associated with that as well. As long as you can follow it to get through it and not have it build and actually take the action that it's telling you to take. System arguably becomes the most important piece to this game. Because if you're relying on your memory for how to go about lead generation and lead follow-up and pipeline management, things will slip through the cracks at a very high level. I don't care how good you are. They just won't be able to manage the business properly. Or if you are managing it properly, it's probably because you don't have a very big database and a lot of, help that it needs.
Permission to,
Technically, yes, but as long as starting off, you're off, anytime you can get opt in, that's like where the future of communication is going. Okay. So like having permission to contact people via email, via text, calling them is choice one. Necessity, aside from choice one, is you have to provide them the ability to unsubscribe. If you do anything through an email service, constant contact, command, they'll have that feature.
well, it's like, they're not, like, if I have like a zero or
Mhm.
and I have all their information, or like with like doing giveaways, like I have their email, can I just send to it, or like, or so that.
Well, you're talking about, so you mentioned Zillow leads, and then you mentioned like somebody would give a giveaway.
Yeah.
So your sphere, right?
Well,
Or bringing them
add it
together.
to it.
Understand you're going to have that opt-in with the Zillow lead so long as it came from your account. So if you're getting, if you're not on a team or if you're getting a lead from some other agent, then that's not the same opt-in. Okay. But I mean, I want to stick to my break stuff philosophy. Okay. And ultimately I'm gonna tell you like, you know, do this in a TCPA compliant manner when it comes to making calls, especially and sending text messages. With emails, like as long as you have the ability for somebody to unsubscribe, you should be good in the current state of the union there. But this is why, there's a whole topic here that I could really get off topic with, but like that, compliance of communication world that already exists and we're like heading towards full steam ahead is very critical. So think about it, anything that you structure from here for your marketing, think of the opt-ins that you need to get in order to be compliant with that database member from here and what avenue, what can you create in order to get it? Third question to ask yourself, what your grade is do you know what to say? So if you're contacting your people in your database systematically, you're using the system to contact your people consistently. If you don't know what to say, it doesn't matter how well the system's set up to tell you who to contact and when, and it doesn't matter if you have all the people in there to contact themselves. If you don't know what to say, you're at a real severe disadvantage as to actually making those contacts. So this is where the practice comes into play. This is where the personal development comes into play in order to know even what to practice. This is where having, strategies and tactics and things that you're working on in order to present as an attempt to offer value. Okay. Now I just phrased that very specifically. And in comparison, what I did not say is that you're demanding that you provide value to them and that they take it. I said you're just attempting to offer value to your people, not, let me shove this on you. To be in a position where you have those ideas crafted, you went to the lab on them, you worked on them with me, worked on them with an accountability partner, whatever it is, and you practice it, and now you're ready to bring it into the game and ready to use the words that you've been practicing in order to attempt to offer value. If you don't get to that point when it's come time to, okay, plug in, look at your system for the day, here's the people that you need to contact, and it's telling you there's a bunch of them because you have a large database. You're doing it well at that point, right? If your system is set up to contact a large database of people, if you don't know what to say, you're likely not going to take the proper action. So really, working on your skill set and the personal development in order to get to that point is really, really key. But that's a big tie-in piece. So what I want each of you to do is to really grade yourself on these categories. How complete is your database? And if it's a low grade, okay, what would make it a higher grade? And can you take that step? Number two, how well does your system feed you the contacts that you need to make? And if you're looking at a low grade there, okay, what step can you take to upgrade that aspect of your business? Because it's going to be critical. And then number three, do you know what to say? Are you confident and comfortable on what you're going to say and what you're going to use as lead generation strategy? Because you've practiced it a bunch of times. because you've worked on it up until the point of when you're, ready to go use it for the first time, and then some more, for the next day and the next week until you cycle through your entire database. I'm issuing a challenge right now to everybody to find a way to strategically get through your entire database from now until the end of the year. So you have bonus time because we should be doing this every 3 months per the MREA model. So I'm giving you 3 months and 2 weeks to get through your entire database, set up the system for the next round of contacts to make and when, and use a tactical conversation with them as an attempt to provide value to their real estate life. From there, I want you to really analyze yourself and how you're performing in those three categories of lead generation, database, and system. And look to, find opportunities to improve on and close the gap for your business from there. The segue now to, what you would use this information for, right? If you're grading yourself on those topics to find out, opportunities as to how to improve and how to get better, how to do more business, how to reach your goals. Well, we're going to segue into business planning because that plan will ultimately be the guide that you're going to follow in order to seek that improvement. I'm going to start this discussion by saying, you're going to hear a lot about business planning from now until the end of the year. Well, really not now. I'm probably early. I am early. I'm pushing to go out and create your 2026 business plan now, when you're going to see the market center start to push it next month. I think Chelsea is hosting a series of classes. I want to say starting mid-October. She's doing a clinic in November at some point. And that coincides with how we typically do this as a brokerage, as a training company that happens to sell real estate as a whole. Is just you're going to get that business planning stuff not at the start of the year and not at the tail end of the year before Christmas kicks in, but to give yourself that grace of okay, we've got the holidays and we certainly don't want to develop a 2026 business plan on January 2nd. I'm telling you, start it now and make the year 5 quarters long, right? Make the year 15 months long. Go reach your 2026 goals now. Start to anyway, because that's how it really plays out. Is that, whatever business gets done and accepted or whatever activities get made between now and the end of the year, anything new that you do right now, generally speaking, the best chance for it to play out and pay out is 90 days from now. So we're already there. But to really you're gonna hear me talk about business planning for 2026 starting now for the duration of the year, or frankly, until we can all get through it and have a business plan. So I challenge you to take this on, send me the draft of what you come up with so that we can review it together and I can give you feedback and yeah, let's run with it from there. But the sooner that we get this established and in play to focus on, and then we can actually use it and take on the strategies and tactics that it gives us, the better. Sooner the better. We're going to start now. Everybody else in the industry, your competition is going to A, either not do this at all, or B, wait till the holiday season, really. Most people are going to float through this season. Like I just referred to, we still have about a third of the year left. So go get the immediate business that you can do, but then also tee yourself up for the next year. You got this unique type of period that exists, in the calendar each year. That's like, okay, let's finish the year strong and let's also dictate how we're going to finish 2026. Because I'm telling you, it's just really, really hard to rebound and reach your goals when you have a crap quarter one coming out of the gate. So let's prevent that from happening. I'm going to give you 5 steps as to how to, go about business planning. Okay? Step one is long-term planning. And to really there's a lot of young people in this group. The sooner that you start thinking about your retirement and planning for your retirement and deciding what that needs to look like, the better. If you're hearing this and thinking, I'm not so young, well, yeah, now you don't have a choice. Here's a line that I can tell you is that I've never heard of a real estate agent's retirement party. You'll never get invited to one. They just fizzle out and don't renew their license. So be in a position where you can actually celebrate, hey, I stopped working. The traditional retirement from an employer type of thing. You're just the employer. So it's exciting in that regard. If you get on board with this and seek to make it happen. Because otherwise you're going to be the guilty victim of 99.9% of the industry. So you can hear that and be like, all right, well, clearly nobody's doing this, but it's not for the right reasons. It's because people fizzle out and just end up quitting in the form of I'm not going to renew my license anymore because I have no business to service and I'm old or don't want to do this anymore. So start thinking for the long term. In the, I guess, shorter long term than retirement would be thinking of it in a manner of what do you want that you don't have? Well, it's going to take some time to get that you can start working towards now that can serve as a goal. And really establish these goals to then build a plan around. Back to retirement, the three the three sources of um, wealth, the three top sources of wealth that can lead to success in retirement. Well, number one is real estate investments, so that's good. That plays into your business. So you have an opportunity to capitalize on that for yourself at a more unique level than most do. And also, you have an opportunity to make a lot of money representing those that are capitalizing on it for themselves. That's exciting. The second piece, and not in any particular order, but the three, most, the biggest sources for where wealth for retirement is created. Second one would be stocks and the stock market and those types of investments. Okay, now maybe you're at a little bit of a disadvantage as a self-employed individual to where you don't have an employer that, you're um, getting a 401k match from. However, guess what? You can create that for yourself. If you build a big enough business to where you have employees yourself, you can match their 401k and then match your own as you pay yourself through payroll. You can create that, more traditional employee to or employer to employee financial benefit that comes with those types of investments. But you can also create, you can create that for yourself, but also you can invest outside of that, just one example of a 401k and invest in the stock market. The third is businesses. The business that you own and business owners, that's probably number one in terms of where the most wealth comes from. But just understand that you own a business now and you can create a lot of different avenues of wealth that can lead to a very happy and prosperous retirement. Second step to business planning is personal goal setting off of this long-term planning or just whatever else needs to be accomplished that's right in front of you. Now, I want you to think of personal goal setting two categories. One would be an income goal, and the other would be I'm just going to call it a health related goal. Okay. But just think of it as more personal. And I go to health just because that could be physical health, that could be mental health, that could be spiritual health, that could be relationship health. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but think outside of, just the effort that you have to put forth in this business in order to be successful. You need to be right within, so to speak, in order to do that. Because if you don't have the right energy, for example, whether it be from, well, I mean, all four of those categories I laid out could cause the wrong energy, poor physical health, poor mental health, poor health in your relationships, and if you're a spiritual person and that's not right, that's going to affect your overall energy and how you perform in your business. So set a goal to, improve on whatever it needs to be improved on with yourself personally that's going to allow this to happen. And then, yes, you also need an income goal too. So real quick to rattle through this, but here's how to calculate what your income goal needs to be. Number one would be your fixed personal expenses, just your car, your mortgage or your rent, your insurance cost, you know, the average amount of groceries that you need, things that you cannot live without. Groceries, food is a great example because that spills into both the first and second categories. The second category would be personal lifestyle or variable or non-fixed expenses. And food, for example, like you need food in order to live. So you're going to need to budget fixed expense for groceries and food. However, you do not need to go out 3 times a week in order to live. So that luxury of going out to eat all the time becomes a variable lifestyle expense that if you don't have the budget for it, you can't get away with cutting your entire budget for food, but you can get away with cutting your budget for going out to eat said food, just as an example. But that second category of just your variable lifestyle expenses, what's in there that you know is either there for quality of life, and if you can afford it, game on, do it, all of it, all the time, as much as you want. Or if you can't afford it, these are, this category is what you look to cut from, most likely. Third category would be your business expenses. Now, being newer, you probably don't have the proper context to know exactly how to budget for that. That's okay. Be conservative, get with others to know what they've done starting off in their career, get with me, but it's okay to guess. Because then you can go into the following year with, okay, here was the budget, or you go into a mid-year review or a monthly review of your P&L quarterly, just to see where you're at with those budgets. Are you spending what you budgeted for, or are you spending more than what you budgeted for based on progress made through the year so far? Fourth category would be the goals, essentially. The wants, desires, the investments to make, the luxury, items to purchase. If that's important to you, if it's important, part of your goal for your, what do you want to accomplish is to have a boat for the family next year or yourself, whatever. If it's going to cost 50 grand for a boat, they better, budget for that. Otherwise, you may go to buy the boat and then find out you're 50 grand short on what's needed for fixed expenses that you need to live. So account for it properly. You're going to total up each of those first four categories. Fixed expense, variable expense, business expense, and how much it takes to reach your goals. And then multiply it by, in my opinion, 25% would be too low to account for Uncle Sam and taxes. 30% is probably really, a good conservative number. Unless you're in a higher income bracket already, or you start really making higher income in this business. 35% would be like super conservative. I'm not here to give CPA tax advice, but you're most likely going to be in a surplus situation there. But the fifth category being paying Uncle Sam and paying taxes. So now when you have a budget for each of those categories and you total them up, that becomes your income goal for the year. Third step to business planning is to cast a vision. Now here's an example of how to do this. Okay, and this is just an example, but if you're striving to be number one in any given category, arguably, that's the easiest way to cast a vision, because this becomes measurable. Being number one or not, or number two or number seven is measurable. You pick something that is achievable for you. Okay, and just I'm hesitant to say this the way I'm going to say it, because truly anything is possible. Okay, in life and in business. However, if you're sitting here right now, brand new in business, and your goal is to become number one real estate agent in all of Rochester by the end of 2026, you're going to have to sell like 90 something million in sales volume in order to do that. That may be a tall order. Anything is possible, right? But versus if you're sitting here, I want to be number one in the launch program at Keller Williams Realty, totally achievable goal. You may want to be the number one, whatever, agent under 30 within Keller Williams. The number one agent with the most listings, the most investment property listings, the number one agent in the town that you live. Find something that is, attainable and achievable, and go out and set the vision to be number one at it. Pick a concentric circle that you can be number one at, and go cast a vision for that. Because then, it becomes easy to communicate. It becomes easily marketable when you get there. It's instant credibility when you get there. And ultimately, it's going to drive you to be competitive. Because keep in mind, we're kind of weird as humans, right? Where everything I just got done laying out in that income goal formula, you would think like, okay, well, that includes what I want to accomplish in my life and these wants and desires and the investments I'm going to make. You would think that would be motivating enough. For some, it may be, but a lot of people struggle making that correlation to like, okay, this is, I know the money I need to make, and now I'm just, always motivated to go do the hard thing in order to make it. It's more rare to be at that point as a human versus like something as simple as I just want to be number one. I don't want to fail. Getting there. Fourth piece becomes the business planning itself. Okay. Now you're going to hear about tools called 135 or a GPS. I shouldn't say this too loudly, but our boy Gary Keller here probably wouldn't be happy with me saying this, but I'm going to say it that I don't care what tool you use or what format you use to build a business plan. I just want you to have a business plan that you're consistently following. If that's by the book and following a 135 format, great. If it's some other written, has to be in writing, one. If it's a written format that works for you and you consistently follow it, and it's a SMART plan, and the acronym for SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, repeatable, and time bound. If the plan has those elements in it, and you're following it consistently, I don't care what the format is. The other thing I'm going to say here on this topic of creating the business plan is make your life easier and use AI to do it. I don't care if you hand me a draft of a business plan that you didn't write at all. Make sure that you're reading and interpreting and willing to do what the AI robot crafted for you and give it edits and give it different ideas of what you want to incorporate, but like work smarter, not harder. Before these tools, before AI, like this would be a challenge because we'd have to spend hours on this. Now, if you wanted to do a 1-3-5 and you knew what your income goal was and you could prompt chat, Gemini, whatever, ChatGPT, I need you to write me a comprehensive business plan in order to make $200,000 in 2026. And in order to make $200,000, I need to sell 40 homes at a $300,000 average price point. Can you give me 3 core concepts to focus on in order to achieve that goal? And within each core concept, I need 5 specific, measurable, attainable, repeatable, and time-bound strategies. It'll give you a 1-3-5. It'll probably be pretty damn good too. Or at least it'll tell you enough as to like what you need to get the spur to get going from there. Fifth part is the budget for it. So apply budget to this plan. You've already been going, take a look at what you've spent on the business and determine whether or not it gives you a rate of return or it's effective for your business. Then determine, is it going to be part of this plan moving forward? If it is, apply a budget. And if it doesn't, scrap it. Stop doing it. Stop spending the money. Everything that you should spend money on, or everything that you spend money on, should have a 3x rate of return. The reason being taxes, inflation, risk. If you're just spending a dollar to make a dollar back, you're losing money because you have to pay taxes. It's 2x that you're going to make back from whatever expense. It gets really dangerous because you have to pay taxes. And if the risk plays out to where you're not making what you thought you're going to make from it, but now you're back to breaking even or less, that's a problem. My challenge to you, each of you, is to draft a business plan that you're going to follow in 2026 as soon as possible. Send it to me to review. Send it to me for feedback, ideas, suggestions. From there, this isn't just the, okay, we got our homework exercise done early in September and we don't need to do that. It's not like college where it's like, okay, I'm going to do the entire syllabus and then not have to, not have to do anything come finals week in November, December, whatever. No, we need to use it consistently. The ultimate purpose of this is to develop this. This becomes your annual plan for the year. But the purpose of you of really using it and developing it is to use a weekly plan that is on a mission to, fulfill the overall plan for the year over the course of 52 weeks or however many weeks you're working. But we got to start. We can't get to a weekly plan without at least doing this the right way. We can't get to a weekly plan without having a annual plan created. Questions on it? Yeah. I had a question about inspection waivers with buyers and getting them to essentially get on board with that, right? Give me, Lauren, give me context, if you don't mind.
They're from Warwick, 4 hours away.
Out of town buyer.
I mean, not that people here know what the market like is, barely, but didn't like the idea of them waiving it. I don't know if it'll just take a couple offers for them to be more open to it, but obviously I don't want that.
What's the approach that you've taken on the topic so far?
I think got too deep into it because I didn't,
How did it come up?
like, there's seeing a home that they wanted to put an offer on, he mentioned that he wanted and such,
Yeah.
kinda quickly mentioned that a lot of people waive them.
Mhm.
Due to being in a seller's market and dive too much more into it because he kind of discussed that he wanted it.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, at this point in the market, just generally speaking, at all points, you're talking about waiving an inspection when it's been determined that there's definitely going to be competition, and that competition is, you know, on average, you know, majority waiving inspections, right? When this market shifts and it starts to be like, well, you don't really need to waive an inspection. I think it's worth saying, but it's fairly obvious that, like, okay, us as an agent representing a buyer would want to protect the buyer to have them get an inspection, right? So it's strictly out of competition the need to even have this discussion, right? So I think the first point to make is just, as much as you can address without scaring people off, right? In the consultation up front, before they enter the market and get, identify, things they want to pull the trigger on, that there's a benefit to that. Because I'm not saying this is the case here on your end, but you run the risk of getting, a reaction of like, man, that kind of stinks. Why didn't you tell me about this when we first started talking? Versus telling me about it now when I have a property I'm interested in. I've gotten all excited about this idea of moving from Warwick to Rochester in that example, right? Just so food for thought on that. As much as you can, and with, as a buyer consultation with critical elements in play in terms of how they're going to need to, adjust and or perform on their end in order to buy. Being ready, willing, and able is a key type of place to be in. And if they're not willing to be competitive, well, it's not to say they can't buy. You just may not have an A grade buyer if they want something that's going to be competitive. From here, it's a matter of storytelling, right? And, if you say if they're getting to a point where they're going to write an offer on this house and you find out from the agent, I've got 7 offers in hand so far, and it's a day before, right? Assuming there's going to be more offers coming. So you just know it's going to be competitive. However, you can find a way to relate to how this typically plays out with that, property type, price range, location, etc. And here's what I can tell you, like, you don't have to have the transactional experience to be able to tell that story and relate to it, right? Just get the story to tell from this great company that you're with. Specifically, I'm right here. Like, I'll give you the story to tell. But ultimately, to get to a point where you're telling that story in a manner of like, listen, like, here's how I find this typically plays out. In this situation where we have 10 offers, like I've validated from the listing agent, what we're seeing in the marketplace right now typically is that 8 to 9 of them are waiving their inspection. And the 1 and 2 that don't really go to the bottom of the list of consideration. The reason why is that we just aren't giving the seller a sure enough thing to, have them factor in that they're going to take your risky deal because you have an inspection contingency and can just walk away after performing that inspection without having a reason to. And they're just going to go with something that's not because they don't have to wait for you to decide if you're ultimately going to buy it or not. Yeah. So when you have, double whammy type of effect, right? Whether it's a sale contingency or if they're, say if they're, I mean, I hate to say it, right? But say if they're an FHA buyer, can't qualify conventional or a VA buyer. Really hate saying that. But if there's things that are just stacked against them, and then you're just adding to the layers, another way to go about it tactically may be to help them, understand the opportunity that exists in the market that they're in, to where maybe it's better if we just focus on homes that aren't competitive and kind of planting that seed where it's like, oh, what do you mean I can't have the nice homes that I see out there that I really want to go out and get? Well, I get it, but these homes are all selling at the delayed negotiation deadline with multiple offers. And when there's multiple offers, sellers are always going to choose to work with a buyer that doesn't have an inspection compared to one that does. Most times, anything's possible. I just like to go into the market with a buyer where it's not we're just using hope as a strategy. We're more so, you know, in a position where it's like, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. This makes sense. If we're willing to be competitive, we can go after the fancy, nice listings. If we're not, we shouldn't. So try to get to a place where you're, you know, it's not seeming like an opinion, and it's more so an objective opinion, at least based on how you tell the story. That help?